I'm not going to start tonight where you think I might be starting. I know you've seen the images, you've seen the footage from Tel Aviv, you've heard the sirens. We're going to get to all of that, but I want to start somewhere else. I want to start with a train station. Stick with me, you'll see where this is going. Early this morning, before the sun came up in Israel, the Savidor Central railway station in central Tel Aviv was hit. Shrapnel tore into the platforms, concrete shattered, rail services across the entire country were shut down. Savidor Central is the busiest train station in Israel. It's where hundreds of thousands of commuters pass through every single day, where the trains from Jerusalem connect to Haifa. It is the circulatory system of Israeli public life. And as of early this morning, it was broken. Now, I want you to hold that image in your mind for a second. A shattered train platform in the middle of a major city, because that image tells you something important about where we are right now in this war, and about what kind of weapon did this, and about what Iran is trying to say by using it. Because this wasn't a conventional warhead that hit Savidor Station, it was something different. Something that until very recently, most people outside of defense circles had never heard of in this context. Okay, so here's what you need to know. The missile that Iran used in this latest barrage is called the Khorramshahr-four. And the Khorramshahr-four is not your standard ballistic missile. It is the heaviest payload missile in Iran's entire inventory. It weighs roughly 30 tons at launch. It can carry a warhead of about 1,500 kilograms, which is over 3,300 pounds. It has a range of about 2,000 kilometers, which means it can reach anywhere in Israel from deep inside Iranian territory. But here's the part that matters tonight. The Khorramshahr-four can be configured with what's called a cluster munition warhead. And what that means in practical terms is this. At an altitude of about 7 kilometers, roughly 23,000 feet, the warhead cracks open and releases approximately 20 separate submunitions, each one carrying about 2.5 kilograms of explosives, and those submunitions scatter across a diameter of about 16 kilometers. 16 kilometers. One missile, 20 warheads, spread across an area 10 miles wide. Here's why that's significant. And here's why I'm telling you about the engineering of this thing before I tell you about the people who got hurt. Because the whole point of a cluster warhead on a ballistic missile is to defeat air defenses. If Israel's Iron Dome, or arrow system, tracks and intercepts the main missile body, the submunitions have already separated, they're already falling, they're already spreading out over a massive area. You can shoot down the bus, but the passengers already jumped off. And this is where the history comes in. Stay with me. Iran has now launched 4 distinct operations under the name True Promise. The first was in April of 2024, after Israel hit Iran's consulate in Damascus, 300 drones and missiles. The first time Iran had ever struck Israel directly, 99% of them were intercepted. True Promise 2 came in October of 2024, about 200 ballistic missiles, after Israel killed Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah and Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Again, most intercepted. Limited damage. True Promise 3 was June of 2025, the 12-day war, more than 500 ballistic missiles and over 1,000 drones. That one killed more than 28 Israeli civilians. Each time bigger, each time more advanced, each time harder to stop. And now we're in True Promise 4, which started on February 28th when the United States and Israel launched surprise strikes on Iran, killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on the first day, and what we're seeing tonight is not Wave 1 or Wave 2. According to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, tonight's barrage was approximately the 61st wave of Operation True Promise 4. 61 waves in 18 days. That's where we are. So why am I telling you about the Khorramshahr-4's engineering? Why am I talking about submunitions and cluster warheads and air defense evasion? Because here's the thing. What happened in Ramat Gan early this morning? What happened at Savidor Station? What happened in Petah Tikva and Holon and Kafr Qasem that wasn't random shrapnel from an intercepted missile falling out of the sky? This was a weapon specifically designed to get past Israel's defenses. The Associated Press filmed the moment a cluster munition released from an Iranian missile over Israel. You can see the submunitions separate and fall. The IDF confirmed it. And this attack was not launched for tactical reasons. The Revolutionary Guard Corps put out a statement saying explicitly that this barrage using both the Khorramshahr-4 and Qatar missiles was revenge for the assassination of Ali Larijani. Now, if you're asking yourself, who is Ali Larijani and why does his death trigger this kind of response? That is the right question. Ali Larijani was, until yesterday, arguably the most powerful person left in the Iranian government. After Israel and the United States killed Supreme Leader Khamenei on February 28th, the first day of the war, Larijani stepped into what multiple outlets described described as the role of de facto leader. He was the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. He'd been a parliamentary speaker for over a decade. He came from one of the most influential political families in the country, a family that's been compared to the Kennedys. He wrote his doctoral thesis on the philosopher Immanuel Kant, negotiated nuclear deals with the West, and then after Khamenei's death went on state television and said America and Israel had set the heart of the Iranian nation ablaze. He was last seen in public on Friday, March 13th, walking in a Quds Day parade through the streets of Tehran, surrounded by thousands, projecting defiance while American and Israeli bombs were still falling on the capital. And then overnight, Monday into Tuesday, Israel struck. Larijani was killed, along with his son and his bodyguards. The besieged paramilitary commander, Gholam Reza Soleimani, was killed in a separate strike along with his deputy, and what Israeli officials said was the majority of the besieged leadership. The IDF called Larijani the de facto leader of the Iranian terror regime. Netanyahu called him the boss. The New York Times had used the same phrase, and within hours of Tehran confirming his death, the missiles started flying toward Tel Aviv again. Here's why this matters right now, because what you're watching is a cycle that is accelerating, not slowing down. Israel kills Iran's leaders. Iran fires missiles at Israeli cities. Israel kills more leaders. Iran fires bigger, more advanced missiles. And tonight, in Ramat Gan, a couple in their 70s, a man and a woman did not make it to their building's safe room in time. Think about that. An elderly couple in their apartment, shrapnel from a cluster warhead, they couldn't get to the shelter fast enough. So let me show you what this looks like on the ground, because the scale of it gets lost in the headlines. This is Ramat Gan, a suburb right next to Tel Aviv. 5 major impact sites confirmed by the city's municipality. Mayor Carmel Shama-Hakohen called it a tough night for Ramat Gan and described it as a deadly multi-launch barrage. This is Savidor Central station. Platforms ripped up by shrapnel. Rail services shut down across the country. Shuttle buses running between Herzliya and Ben Gurion Airport as a workaround. This is Holon, where a cluster submunition took down a power line which set multiple cars on fire next to a residential building. This is Petah Tikva, where firefighters were battling blazes. This is Kafr Qasim, same thing. A Magen David Adom emergency vehicle operating in central Israel that was itself hit by falling shrapnel during the attack. 8 suspected shrapnel impact sites confirmed across central Israel from this single barrage, and this was the 4th Iranian missile attack on Israel just since midnight. And here's the number that puts all of this into a wider frame. Since this war began on February 28th, 14 people have been killed in Israel by Iranian missiles. 4 of them were killed by cluster munitions specifically. 2 more died while trying to get to their safe rooms, and we are only on day 19 of this war. I have to tell you something. The original True Promise one, back in April 2024, 300 missiles and drones, 0 Israelis killed. True Promise 2, October 2024, nearly 200 ballistic missiles, 0 killed. True Promise 3, the 12-day war in June 2025, more than 500 missiles, 28 civilians killed. True Promise 4, 18 days in, 14 dead, and the missiles are getting harder to intercept, not easier. So here's what to watch. Iran has now lost its supreme leader, its de facto leader, its Basij commander, and much of its top military brass, and the missile barrages have not stopped. If anything, they're intensifying. The shift from large coordinated salvos to smaller, more frequent waves, sometimes arriving every hour or two, is a deliberate tactical adaptation. The use of cluster warheads is an adaptation. The targeting of civilian infrastructure like Savidor Station, whether directly or through debris, is a new reality. The questions right now are, does the killing of Larijani and Soleimani degrade Iran's ability to coordinate this campaign, or does it just fuel the next round of retaliation? Does Israel have an answer for cluster munitions that scatter 20 warheads across 10 miles? And does anyone anywhere have a plan for how this ends that doesn't involve this cycle just continuing to escalate day after day, wave after wave? I started tonight with a train station, a shattered platform in the middle of Israel's busiest transportation hub. And the reason I started there is because a train station is a symbol of normalcy. It's how people get to work. It's how they get home. And what that damage tells you more than any missile specification or military communique is that normalcy for millions of people in this region on all sides of this war is something that was shattered weeks ago and shows no sign of being rebuilt. We are 19 days into this. The weapons are getting more sophisticated. escalated, the death toll is climbing, and we're going to stay on this story. Stay with us. We've got a lot more to get to.